And a big midweek welcome to lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and members from the Lewis and Clark College community 4 days a week on our show, streaming live on Facebook Live. You can find us at lcpioneers.com/live, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, and available on demand to watch on our YouTube page, youtube.com/lcpios. Hi there, I am Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and competing with 19 intercollegiate programs from throughout the a spectrum of sports in the Northwest Conference, competing against other institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and a chance with over 430 institutions nationwide, a chance for our student athletes to get an opportunity to compete on a national level. We are continuing these conversations, as I mentioned at the top, with student athletes, and doing so as school has started. And so what we're doing differently for this specific show is we're going to have our guest right off the top. Usually I talk about some different things that are going on lcpioneers.com, but we have classes. And so I want to make sure that we get our guest in and spend as much time with him as possible. And so with that said, let's bring in our guest for today, a senior for Lewis and Clark men's rowing. We bring in Nick Campen to the show. And Nick, like I said, I mean, school is in session, so I appreciate you fitting us in, certainly. Let's start with discussing the summer and kind of the different changes that everyone's had to go through because of the pandemic, dating back to mid-March when your junior season was canceled because of COVID. Kind of just describe what the last 6 months has been like for you.
Well, Ryan, it's been very complicated. Usually I would try to go out and meet with a lot of friends, but because of we had to really adapt and trying to just like get together with each other, but through online services of just Zoom calls, phone, texting, just trying to meet up virtually just to hang out and not be so distant with each other. It's also been a bit of an impact for just working out. So I do rowing a lot, and so we generally would have to be in very close spaces with each other. But because of the social distancing, that's kind of been off the table because of it. So it's mainly been a lot of biking and a lot of home workouts for me for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an adapting process, and even just, classes going remote and such. I'm curious, your final part of the spring semester, how did that adjustment go, learning to take classes online and then adapting back to how things are going to go in fall 2020? What's the class structure been like from your point of view?
Classes have been very. I do have to say, have to tip my hat off to a lot of the professors and teachers that who are able to adapt to a lot of these classes. Some of the classes I've had that they've adapted very well. It's very For example, one of the classes I'm doing is computer science that has been transferred very easily over. Some of the music ones have had a bit of trouble. The one trouble I've had is my actual lab lectures, where I have it's more in person of just actually having to do hands-on experiences with the studies.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely understandable. I mean, everyone has made those adjustments, as you mentioned, too. It's not just taking the classes now, but being able to instruct them online. And now with fall 2020, some hybrid modeling, too, like your next class you're going to take online today. I want to start with this next topic. We're looking at more of like the origin, right? You're from Palo Alto, California. And I'm curious, what drew you toward Portland, toward Lewis and Clark, and why did you choose to become a Pioneer?
Well, it was a bit of a process where I wanted to stay on the West Coast because I really like California, Oregon, and Washington. I didn't want to travel too far over to the East Coast, so I was like, okay, so I'll go and try and go for these states. But I didn't want to be close to home, so I was like, okay, I'll take out California. So my family and I started doing some college tours over to Oregon. I took a look at Oregon State. I took a look at the University of Oregon. Took some colleges in Salem and also in Washington. But what drew me to Lewis and Clark was that it had rowing. It was a D3 school, so it still had that competitive aspect, but it wasn't as intensive as, like, for example, Oregon State, where it was a D1. I could take a bit more relax and focus more on my academics, which Lewis and Clark definitely had. I wanted to go into a STEM field. I wanted to go specifically into chemistry, and Lewis and Clark had a very nice chemistry department. So all that kind of blended together, and it pointed me towards Lewis and Clark.
Now, we're talking to Nick Campen on lcpioneers.com live Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And you mentioned rowing. I mean, intentional about trying to compete at the collegiate level. How did you
Mhm.
get into the sport, and what are some of the aspects of rowing that's really hooked you?
So I was always a very physically active person from when I was started. I started with I tried basketball, soccer, and a bit of tennis, but I wasn't a huge fan of basketball and soccer because it was very physically, it was had a lot of physical contact, and I kind of didn't like that fighting aspect. So I kind of went into tennis, but how I started was that went into a little summer camp of rowing, and it honestly just captured me. Then I asked the coach who was running that camp, that where how can I get started into rowing. And so in high school I started with a club, and from there I just went on over to here at Lewis and Clark.
And there's a couple of different routes by which a student can start competing for Lewis and Clark in the rowing sport. You had the experience and joined the
Hmm.
team, but I'm also always intrigued about the novice route. Describe what path that looks like for students who maybe come to Lewis and Clark, know they want to compete, but aren't quite sure what options are available to them. How do they get involved with the rowing team?
It's just like it's just having an interest in the sport is all you need. Rowing, the nice thing about it is that it's very easy to get into. It's one of those things where it's like it's easy to learn, but it takes like decades to master. And that's what the nice thing is. Like, I'm still learning how to do have the right technique, how to have the right power application. And it's just like, yet you get started, happen just try a few of the workouts, and being able to have a team that actually will help support you, that just keep you going.
Now, you described choosing a West Coast school intentionally and winding up at Lewis and Clark because of all those reasons you
Hmm.
mentioned earlier. But chemistry is your major. I'm curious, as you've gone through now completing your junior year, first part of your senior year, what are some aspects about the chemistry major that you've truly enjoyed so far?
So so one of the things I like about chemistry is that I really did enjoy those lab portions. That it's those hands-on learning that really captured me. And also, like, the faculty is just very helpful. They're always available to answer questions that I have. The topics are always very broad, because like the field is also very broad, and so it helped me figure out like what kind of field I wanted to get into, and so just stuck with me, I guess.
Well, and we had a chance yesterday. Emily Thompson was our guest from class of 16, and she said one thing she really enjoyed was also the opportunity to take classes kind of outside of the realm of your major. How has that impacted you too, being able to explore and learn beyond just what your chemistry major is?
It's been very nice. Some of the electives that I've been has been very nice to just take a step back from chemistry and STEM in general. A lot. It's very nice to have like some of these. So it's structured by like 100, 200, 300, 400 levels. These 100 level classes are very nice to get into. It's almost relaxing, because it's supposed to get students very interested and capture them, and get them into the field that they may want to pursue. Economics has been a very interesting class. Computer science has been one of my favorites. Um, but the music electives have also been a very enjoyable to do as well.
Well, we wish you the best luck as you go into your senior year, and I'll talk a little bit after we let you go so you can get to class about what's ahead in terms of competition for the Northwest Conference. But before I do, I mean, we're senior year. I'm sure you get asked by this by many people, but what's kind of ahead for you? Do you kind of know what professional route you're planning to take, or is that still somewhat up in the air?
It's still somewhat up in the air. I had this idea that I could potentially continue rowing after college because it's been a huge part of my life, almost nearly 7 years now, and I was interested in either doing it professionally or even taking like in a coaching assistant coaching position.
Yeah, we've seen some of your past teammates, whether it's be for men's or women's rowing. Natalie Stroud comes to mind, right? Someone who competed
Yeah.
on the women's program while you were there, now an assistant coach for your team. Well, whatever it is, Nick, we wish you the best of luck pursuing it, and more so, certainly appreciate your time talking to us, kind of squeezing us in before class, and we'll look forward to seeing you around campus in the near future. That's Nicholas Campen joining us on lcpioneers.com live. That was fun. I really enjoy the opportunity to spend more time with each of our student athletes. And rowing is great because their office is right there in the same hallway as mine in the Zembauer Swimming Pavilion. But what makes rowing difficult is all of their practices are off campus, even though it is really convenient to drive from Lewis and Clark's campus to Oaks Park, which is just across the Selwood Bridge. So from a practice perspective, being able to accomplish that, as we've had some of the rowing coaches, Claudia Lober, Sam Taylor, on the show before, that's not a difficult drive to get over to Selwood. It's just a matter of, for someone like me, trying to attend as many practices as I can. That becomes harder, especially because with rowing, obviously they're in the middle of the river once practice gets up and going. So it's not like I can show up maybe 15 minutes after they get started and see them. And so one thing I've really enjoyed about this show is getting a chance to talk more with student athletes, especially in a sport like rowing that's off campus, where I might have the opportunity to talk to them on a day in, day out level at practice. Certainly we are able to cross paths in the hallway. Same with golf. We have some amazing golf courses and facilities around the Lewis and Clark College campus, but they're not on campus primarily. And so that's definitely a big deal. And I'm appreciative that Nick, like I said, taking the time to fit us in before he had to get to class. I mean, that's huge. We really appreciate that for sure. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll update you on some information, what's going on with Lewis and Clark Athletics, and take a look at our guests for tomorrow's show. We'll do that next when we come back on lcpioneers.com live. Welcome back to lcpioneers.com live. I'm Ryan Goff. We appreciate you joining us on this Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. Continuing to talk about what's going on with Lewis and Clark Athletics and fall 2020 and early winter competition too. So we're now about a week and a half into the return to school, and we're continuing to update you on our website, lcpioneers.com. We do have a link to our COVID related information page as it pertains to the NCAA Northwest Conference and Lewis and Clark College's updated links as well through their reopening fall 2020 site. Really, we're past obviously getting ready for the start of the semester, now a week and a half old, but continuing to update in terms of competition. The Northwest Conference deciding that all sports for fall and early winter will be suspended till at least January 1st, 2020. So that we do know. And one thing we're working on right now is to kind of develop more content outside of just this live show to be able to share with you some of the stories of how our Lewis and Clark student athletes are returning to campus and getting ready for the upcoming year. With that said, though, we certainly invite you to check out our YouTube page. You can see all of our past shows. Yesterday, our conversation was with Emily Thompson, a class of 2016 graduate. of Lewis and Clark women's soccer and track and field, a record holder in the hurdles. And so you can find all of those on our YouTube page, youtube.com/LCPios. And then, of course, you can connect with us too on Twitter and Instagram at LC Pioneers. Coming up tomorrow, we will have Aaron Campbell, the head coach of track and field at Lewis and Clark, his second go around on the show, and get a chance to see what's going to look like for his student athletes too this upcoming season. Usually with track and field, you have the opportunity to practice in the fall and then get ready for your spring season. And so how will it look different for Aaron and his team this upcoming year? There's a lot of moving parts in that respect, especially with the roster as big as track and field. So we've had Matthew Barreau, who's the head cross country coach, talk to us a couple weeks back, and that was right at the start of the possible practice window. So the coaches will come on. We'll have a chance to talk to them, not only about the things that they're kind of used to, right? Practices and competition. Without those there, what are they doing instead? And one thing that we found out last week from Lewis and Clark women's basketball head coach Christina Williams is pointing out that there are things that they're doing now that maybe wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the pandemic. And so in a bad situation, trying to make the best of it. And in her case, specifically talking about how there's been an evolution that's there as well. So we certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us. Be sure to go to lcpioneers.com for the latest information. You can sign up for Pioneers Weekly on our website too. And recently, our Director of Physical Education and Athletics, Mark Petrock, put out a letter to our alumni and fans. Sent that out on our first edition of Pioneers Weekly, but usually every Tuesday, we'll send out updates about what's going on with Lewis and Clark Athletics. So that's another way that you can get in touch with the show as well. We do encourage your comments or questions. You can always let us know in the Facebook Live comments, and certainly email us sports@lclark.edu. So until we talk to you again tomorrow with head coach Aaron Campbell from track and field, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. Big thanks to Nick Campen for joining us and fitting us in before class. And as we close out, one other message. The state of Oregon has a lot of wildfires right now, as does the state of California. And one thing that I'm realizing as the fires are much closer to me than I've ever had really in my lifetime is how in an instant things can change. And certainly for those who have been evacuated, for those who have been impacted by the fire, our best thoughts to you. For those who are worried, best thoughts to you as well. And please listen to the evacuation orders. Don't take more than you need. Be safe as we can. Also being mindful that the pandemic is still certainly there. There's a lot going on, and hopefully for this 15-20 minutes each Tuesday through Friday, we're able to kind of give you a moment to talk to some of our student athletes and hear about what their experience has been like, because that is one of my favorite things and one thing I truly enjoy about this. We have student athletes from all over the place, and natural disasters, whether hurricane or tornado or earthquake, are real. And I am going to be more mindful, certainly, to send those thoughts no matter where they're happening in the world, because right now it's very close to home and it's taken a toll. So we hope that you're safe, and please take care. You're our family. And so we'll hopefully see you again soon for more of the show. Really enjoyed that conversation, though. It was helpful to take my mind off things for a second. So until we talk to you again tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. We'll see you again tomorrow with Coach Campbell. Goodbye, everybody.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.